Hello, 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 hello. Hello. Hi. Yeah, my name is Don Hansen. As an artist, I go by d0n.xyz. That is my domain name because I am an internet artist and my online identity is linked to me as an artist. Oh, thanks for getting quiet. Yeah, so this is my, all right, going full screen. So I'm an internet artist since 2008. I'm a researcher and a teacher, and as an internet artist, I've made a lot of websites, like a lot. There was even one day when I made a website before I even got out of bed in the morning. So you gotta strike when the inspiration is there. So I've done lots of little projects, and I've done some big ones too. Big projects include launching a VJ software application called GiftSlap, running an electronic music label called Gridwalk, and nowadays running a virtual art space called New Art City, where anybody can launch a 3D virtual art show. So research is a big part of my practice, and it's also a big part of working in new technology for all of us. As technologists, we always want to stay up to date on new technologies, but in addition to staying up to date on what's new, it's also important to research what has come before us and simultaneously what other people in the world in this industry are doing. So my research practice, I made this website called Found You Online, and this is kind of like the core of my research practice, and it's a index for new media art. And I'll click into this. So this, on this site, I'm saying it's an index and not an archive, just to be clear the difference, because an index is like a list of things, whereas an archive is kind of preserving things for the future. Whereas if you were gonna make an archive of something, you wanna make sure to save those artworks. This is more of an index where you can find what's what and what's where. So this project, Found You Online, is an index of artworks, artists, organizations, and events around new media art. And this is a solo project right now, but I'm totally open to other people who are interested in new media art helping me research and find organizations and these kind of things. And so all of the organizations that are in this database get mapped on this map. So for example, over here in San Francisco, here we are, gray area, and each entry in the database will have things like tags, images, and text taken from their websites or the Wikipedias or something like that. So in this talk, I want to present a bunch of projects and do a few demos and share some of the ideas that stem from my research and my art practice. And here are the main ideas that I'll touch on. So when it comes to software and electronics, there's a continuum of tools, toys, and art. Software and electronics can all be categorized into tools, toys, or art in some form. And I'm going to share some of what I've learned making these different types of things. And when it comes to artworks, the most successful artworks form a blend of aesthetic, conceptual, and technical merit. So first I'm going to talk about toys. Woo, toys. So this is my closet in 2007, because as a teenager, I would only spend my money on one thing, and that was old consumer Casio keyboards and Yamaha keyboards and battery-powered toys that make sound. Not only because they're just cool and they're fun to play with, but because they can be hacked and modified, and more sounds can be taken, and more controls can be added to these toys. And this process is called circuit bending. So all of the toys in this closet are hacked in some way or another. So the process of circuit bending is experimental. You kind of open up the toy and probe the circuit, and you explore it using either your hands or wires. And when you find a good sound that comes out, you have to wire up that sound to a knob or a switch or a potentiometer and mount that onto the surface of the of the toy or the plastic that it came in. Sometimes you can even take the entire circuit out and put it in a new enclosure, like the one in the center. This was called Omnivox box. That's Paradox box, and I don't know, this one didn't really have a name. And you can do this with electronics that produce video signals too. And you can produce some sort of like esoteric video synthesizer. So this was a hacked toy called the Tiger TV Painter, which was like some sort of like stylus-based tablet where kids could draw on the screen. And I completely like changed it and made it into this like crazy glitch video synthesizer type thing. And this is kind of based on this artist named Reed Ghazala. So Reed Ghazala was the founder of circuit bending. He wrote this book on it. And this instrument that he created is called the Trigon Incanter. And you can see there's like a bunch of switches mounted on it. There's like even an eyeball. There's like eyeball on it. And a really sick paint job. This is probably when I first discovered that like lightning, crackle paint, black and green is like really cool. And this thing is made out of that. So it was made out of like a baby toy that makes sound, called a touch and tell. I had one. I screwed it up. I like fried it when I was trying to make something. But this was back when I was doing this circuit bending. This was kind of the first time that I realized the connection between tools, toys, and art, because this was a toy that got turned into a tool, and it was done in such a good way that it actually is an art piece. So in software and electronic hardware, toys are just synthesizers with fewer controls available. And this applies to hardware and software, because all software does have underlying controls that aren't exposed, and they can be sometimes hacked to add controls. And when it comes to the web and software on the web, you can inject code all day. You can do that if you want to using browser extensions and bookmarklets. So I want to do a little demo time. So I created a bookmarklet. If you don't know what a bookmarklet is, that's just a little like chunk of code that you can run on any website. And it goes into a button, and you can like put it in your bookmarks bar. So this is the CSS scrambler, and I'm just going to hit this and start scrambling CSS on this website. So you can use bookmarks as controls. Just like you can hack a circuit and add like a knob onto it, you can hack websites and add your own controls onto them in the form of bookmarklets and browser extensions. Another site that I like to do this on is SoundCloud. If I hit my SoundCloud, check out my SoundCloud, yo. But anyways, so another browser extension that I created is called More Plants. I'm just going to refresh to like get my CSS back in order. But More Plants is a browser extension that you can just use it to add plants to any website. I'm maxed out at 100 plants. That's all you can do. So let me go back over here and kind of turn down the number of plants, because that's kind of too many. Leave it at like 2 is a good amount. Now I gotta, I pressed the wrong one. It's hard when the view is behind you. Come on. No, 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 no. Okay, hold on. I need 2 hands for this. Okay, back on track? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and when it comes to software and electronics, you can hack stuff, like I said, with the toys, but like when it comes to like a different type of toy, which is like a video game or like a simple app, or just like a video game, mods are like what you can do to hack those. So this is a mod made by internet artist Jody on Quake. So Quake 1, they made this mod that turned the game itself into a video synthesizer. So they removed a bunch of the assets and made it monochromatic and just kind of went around the game, and this was their artwork. It does sound like Quake 2. I think it'll, there's grunting and... yeah. Yeah. Because in Quake, you shoot people or something. So that's toys. Now I want to talk a bit about tools. So tool making is a pretty important part of my artistic practice as a designer and an artist, because it means taking an artistic prototype that I made for myself and adding enough user interface to make it useful to other people. So I made a few tools over the years, and those kind of end up as my big projects, interspersed with little projects. My first big tool project was called GIFSlap, and it's a VJ software that intakes a folder of GIF images and allows you to use them as footage to generate patterns and do live visuals. And this was kind of back when GIFs were more of a medium for artwork rather than they kind of became just a reaction GIFs kind of became the meaning of GIFs. But it used to be a really popular format for motion graphics and that kind of thing. So this is a desktop application, and the thing that sucks is that now this doesn't even work on Mac anymore because Mac kind of deprecates old software architectures and that kind of thing. And that's a pretty important lesson to me as an artist. That sucks when your work doesn't work anymore. So ever since then, I deploy all of my work to the web. The web is a stable format for artworks, and it's a stable archival format because they don't take features out. They don't deprecate old stuff. So I won't make a desktop app again. And another project that I did in 2018 is called Code Keyframes. So this is an open source project where it allows you to bring in an audio file and then write JavaScript on the timeline to make an audio visual type of piece. And to my knowledge, I'm the only person who uses this. I would really love if somebody else used it. And I would love if anybody wants to make a pull request or collaborate on this. Basic example. So you can see that there's these little keyframes here. And when it hits one, it does something. And what it does is the code that's written in that keyframe. And this is just a super basic example, just on the GitHub, just to show you what it is. But I'll show you an actual music video that I made with this. So if I hit this, oh yeah, and the plants aren't part of it, they're just part of the browser extension. So this project, if I press E, you can see the timeline editor. So you can see all of these little keyframes that are being placed, and it's not a lot of code in there. It just says blink face because it's calling a function that I wrote that's part of this web page. So with code keyframes, it's a JavaScript package that you just load into your page, and then you can go ahead and call whatever functions that you've already written. And this project in particular, these faces are a hacked version of facial recognition software. When you look at the camera and it's oh, it tries to match your face, it draws the face on your face. But instead of using a camera as input, I just kept the face and randomized the points. So now we're getting this totally different kind of face. Yeah, there's a whole second part of this video, but I'm gonna go ahead and go on to the next thing. I'll let it play just for a second. I got a little bit extra time. Okay, yeah. And at the beginning, I did say that I run a label, and this project, that particular music video is for, oh yeah, there's R. Tyler. He's going to be performing later, too. That particular project was for Emina, and you can find all of that at gridwalk.net. Oh, it's out of control. Okay. Back. Closing tabs. Okay, so back to tools. Yeah, so my current major tool project is called New Art City. I mean, some people here probably already heard of it. Gray Area is a big supporter, and they've done all of their virtual shows in New Art City. And it's a 3D virtual art space where anybody can upload digital artworks and create a 3D environment to do an art show. I started working on that in 2020, and now it's my full-time job. Cool. I'm not going to get too deep into that. You can go to newart.city if you want to see more. So pros and cons of tool making as an artist. Pros. It builds community. It becomes very easy to make friends all over the world, especially if like people pick up the software. People want to talk to you, and then like it's just really cool for building community. And creating tools that others enjoy using is rewarding. I suspect that this is kind of the same thing that drives like game developers. Like making a game is like a huge challenge, but when somebody plays it and somebody likes it, that's really rewarding. That's like a really nice feeling. And you become an expert in that field. So maybe this means like, I don't know, you're asked to give a talk at a conference, or maybe you're like hired to do something that's high impact because now you're an expert in that field. So those pros. Now for the cons. It takes way longer. It takes super, super long to add UI into a prototype. So you either have to be a designer, you have to become a designer, or you have to work with a designer to make like a tool that's like easy enough for people to use. And it takes a lot of effort to get UI right. And financial gain is not guaranteed, of course. So like I'm an artist, I'm not a business person, and so I'm learning how to do all of the business stuff on the fly. I would totally not recommend doing it that way. If you're an artist trying to make money with a tool, I would recommend like working with a business person. Find somebody who has an MBA, even if it's just for like consultations. And another thing about making tools is that people always want more. This is also a super common problem with open source software, where there's like infinitely many people just asking for features. But like this is the kind of thing that you learn to manage as building a tool. You need to learn when to say yes, no, never, maybe, that kind of thing. So tools made from artistic prototypes are frameworks for generative art, just with more controls exposed. And now I want to talk about art. Specifically code-based art. Generative art, procedural, parametric, whatever you want to call it. They mean different things, or maybe they mean the same thing, I don't know. So these are some pieces that I made recently. And so when it comes to controls, where are the controls in generative art? The controls are usually only variables in the code. So the controls are kind of kept for the artist, like keeping control of my own controls. Nobody can change these controls because they're mine. And viewers don't have the creative control. Sometimes they might have like something that they can do, whether that's like drawing on it or like some of these like Xbox Kinect style installations where you can like move your arms or something and like control something that way. But the creative vision is still the artist. It's not the control. The amount of control isn't enough that the visitor or the user has the creative vision. And a side note, when it comes to making generative art like this, live coding as a performance, which we'll do later, is a cool way to bypass that like requirement for building a user interface. Like all of these pieces, like, where's my cursor? All of these pieces are like individual code projects, but for my visual set later, I like kind of brought them all into one package where I'm going to just be like messing with the code to change the parameters and the visuals. So the depth of the controls determines what type of project it is on this continuum of tools, toys, and art. When it's a tool, the user has the most control over the variables, and creative vision belongs to the user. When it's a toy, the user has some control over the variables. Think of like photo apps, photo glitch apps, simple synthesizers, or video games, where you don't have all the controls. You have some of the controls, just enough to make it fun. And when it's art, the user has few or no controls over the variables. And the creative vision, of course, belongs to the artist. Oops, that one's supposed to reveal later. But anyways, so Photoshop, of course, we know it's a tool. You have thousands of options at your disposal. The creative output is entirely up to the user. KitPix, this is like the toy version of Photoshop. It's a toy because all of the controls are limited. They're imprecise, and they don't attempt to give you every option. And art, this is where you don't get any controls at all. This piece here is by Andrew Benson, and like, come on. So there is some sort of like input, like I'm moving the cursor to make something happen, and you have to interact with the piece in order for it to do something, but the control is very limited, and you wouldn't say that like you made this just because you moved the cursor. Andrew Benson, pixelpa.com. And so but really, the truth about tools, toys, and art, it's all art. I still have 8 minutes, and I'm going to get through a couple of things. And so the next thing is art making strategy. Talk a little about art making strategy. And this is addressing the question, what is good art? Because we all want to make good art. And I used to think that good art is just like something that makes you feel something, which is like a good start, but it's not the whole picture. Because there has to be some sort of vehicle for that emotion for you to feel something. And how does that work? So I came up with this sort of like strategy about art making. A great artwork should blend aesthetic, technical, and conceptual excellence. And it's possible to go deep into just one or just two of them, and if it's incredible, that can also be a great work of art. But from what I've seen and from what I've created, the most successful artworks will have a blend and land right in the center of this kind of triangle. So, aesthetics. Most artists probably start out in their career with just aesthetic exploration, trying to make something beautiful. It's appeal to the senses and intrinsic quality of the elements at play, composition and beauty. And by investing time to learn how to create something beautiful, then you have a tool that you can use as a vehicle for an idea that you have later. Whenever I'm creating a work that's purely aesthetic, I consider that aesthetic research. That's investing time in a technique. And technical skill is important with artwork because it shows that you put time into learning your tools. It's execution of an idea in a way that's interesting and skillful, mastery of your tools and techniques, and using the tool in a way that is your own, and revealing and exploring the edges of technology. But when a project is purely technical, it's more likely to just be a tool all in itself. And purely technical projects suffer from not having like a driving idea behind it, or not being as beautiful as it can be. Think of like a technology demo. We've all seen technology demos when we're left asking, okay, that's cool, but why? Like, now what? Technical depth in artwork has to be used in combination with aesthetics, and ideally backed by a strong concept. And conceptual rigor. Conceptual ideas. So conceptual rigor is the most challenging part of art making, for me at least. It took me like several years to even like understand what conceptual art was, and several years of just making like aesthetic and technical art before I began to understand how that worked. It's a bit nebulous, but here's what I picked up on. Is there an idea driving this piece? What kind of experience of reality does this artwork mediate? Because artwork is a mediation of reality. What essential truths does this artwork convey? How does this artwork react to the time in which it was created? And how does this artwork converse with other artists across time? This is like, I don't know, this is up for interpretation. Conceptual art is hard. So when you're working on your next software project, think about where it falls on this continuum and where it falls in this triangle. Thanks so much. You can learn more about all my stuff at these links. I'm d0n.xyz.